motherfucker.
Go on a diet, bitch.
Don't put on some fucking man pants, motherfucker. Don't put on some manly pants.
You're gonna sit on me. I don't wanna fuck with you.
Don't put on your fucking manly pants, bitch. Go give your girl her pants back.
You're gonna diet so you can wear pants.
Go give your girl her pants back, motherfucker. Motherfucker.
Go on a diet, bitch.
Don't put on some fucking man pants, motherfucker. Don't put on some manly pants.
You're gonna sit on me. I don't wanna fuck with you.
Don't put on your fucking manly pants, bitch. Motherfucker.
Go on a diet, bitch.
And now what they're doing right now is they are taking people into custody. That's the latest over Hollywood. I'm Larry Welk in Sky 5. Back to you.
All right, Larry Welk, thank you. Micah Ullman back with the coverage here as we look live over Hollywood and a number of people being taken into custody and the concern growing as night begins to fall with people being...
Notice how the mainstream news is simply saying that everyone is breaking the law. They're all just breaking the law. So it's justified arrests.
It's a live picture and a very dramatic picture indeed of a suspect fleeing from police. It appears there's someone hanging out the back door of that car and it looks like they're about to foot bail. Hard to say as we come around the bend here and get a visual on that car, but it looks as though someone just ran out of the back of that car. And there you see one individual running. Somebody, now he's tucking that car in behind the bush, hoping that law enforcement doesn't see him. Now, we don't know, Sheriff, this person that they're detaining at this point was in that car, but they're just trying to grab anybody they can in the area and figure out what's what here and determine that's the individual right there that we believe jumped out of the back of that car. Don't know why they were chasing them, but nonetheless, it looks like they've got a beat on him.
Yeah, this is Sherman Way and Coldwater that you're seeing this activity right now, where it looked like police were in pursuit of a white sedan and that there were several passengers inside, and the passengers were had a foot bail, and one of them, if that was a passenger, we're not really sure at this point, came out with his hands up. Again, live pictures over Sherman Way and Coldwater, and several arrests being made. There have been dozens of arrests all over the county, and also in Riverside, and Hollywood, and Van Nuys, and Westwood. We have been seeing people who are not heeding that order of the curfew that began at 6 p.m. They are being taken into custody.
What an impressive
between the city of West Hollywood and the city of Los Angeles is right behind me. The city of West Hollywood, in their eminent wisdom, if I said that right, in their wisdom, made the curfew 4 p.m. So over there, the curfew is 4 p.m. And in the city of Los Angeles, they just changed the curfew seconds ago. I got an alert on my phone. From 6 p.m. to 5 p.m. So let's see how that plays out with all of these people in this crowd. They're probably going to come in and tell everyone to disperse, and that would be a provocation. We'll see what happens. But I have an easy escape route down the hill in case anybody's worried.
That's Brian Hamilton. He's out there on the scene in West Hollywood. West Hollywood, a place known for the Kardashians and Paris Hilton, not known for craziness. Well, I shouldn't say that is craziness and madness, but not known for any extreme violence. The public is out. They've decided that the streets belong to them and not to any political party in particular, if you catch my drift. And they really feel that staying at home, the street is their home as well. So they're demonstrating against what the police did, which is why they're there. Conspicuously missing from the mainstream media, the mainstream news media, is any discussion as to why people would even be protesting. When I was out there earlier, as was Greg Palast, BBC reporter known for Salon, whose new book is coming out called How Trump Stole 2020. He's a multi-award-winning journalist, and the two of us at separate times were out covering these things, and we were the only ones talking to the protesters. Meanwhile, the entire phalanx of mainstream corporate news were all standing behind the police. And as you can see right now, it's all from the vantage point of the police attacking the public, and then the mainstream news, once again reminding you that everyone's breaking the law and they must be disciplined. Let's take a listen.
Foot pursuit, first time we've really seen anything like this since some of this has gone on. I'm going to move forward to get you into a better position. But LAPD not messing around. They saw that people were going into the pavilions, put a helicopter overhead, got some air units to track these people, and now in foot pursuit of several suspects here.
If you're not from Los Angeles, Pavilions is a grocery store. There's a reason people are going into grocery stores. They're hungry. 30 million people have lost their jobs. So many small businesses have gone belly up because the bailouts went to huge multinational corporations that already had pre-existing big bank accounts, bankers, and relationships. Small businesses got nothing. Millions of people have not gotten unemployment. You know, why would you loot a shoe store except people want shoes? Not defending looting, but let's have a discussion of what's going on here. As you can see, Brian, who's in West Hollywood,
Fuck these racist ass police.
on the left side of your screen here.
Ass police. No peace. Fuck these racist ass police.
So it's all about the police, but the discussion in the mainstream news has nothing to do with the police, except the police are some kind of John Wayne force. Let's take a listen.
There's a police presence and protest.
Well, we still have a very heavy police presence with the Riverside Police Department, also our partners at the Riverside County Sheriff's Department, and then a couple other local agencies. We're looking at maybe a couple hundred or less people still here. We think, for the most part, all the people who came down for a peaceful protest, most of them have left, and we think these are the leftovers are kind of some of the troublemakers that we're dealing with right now. We are starting to arrest a few of them for the curfew violations, and we have given a dispersal order to them.
So
And
it's not a few, it's hundreds and hundreds of people have been arrested. The police have been rolling out these buses, like Greyhound buses, and packing people in and carting them off. Just right out of a science fiction movie.
And you're mentioning how you have multiple agencies that are in conjunction with enforcing the curfew tonight. When you tell the people to disperse and that this is unlawful, what
Look
is
at
happening?
the
How long do they
police
have
lineup
before they
here.
need to go?
Have you ever seen such
well,
a thing in your
in
life?
Riverside County,
With
curfew
armored
was
vehicles
enacted at,
behind.
6 p.m. It wasn't until close to 7:30 before we
By
started.
the way, feel free to chat,
really looking
and
to
we can
enforce this
discuss
and
what you're
move
seeing, what you're
folks
thinking,
who are
what your
still straggling
observations
out
are.
of here. We've given them multiple audio or warnings through megaphones, everything. We've put out alerts to their phones, similar to like an Amber Alert, and we've done it on.
Looks like that part of the feed froze. I'm going to show you. Let's bring back the audio and see what's going on in West Hollywood.
Black lives, they matter here. 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 George Floyd! George Floyd! George Floyd! Breonna Taylor! Breonna Taylor! Breonna Taylor! Justice! Now! Justice! Now! Justice! Now! Isn't that great? Justice! Now! Black lives, they matter here! 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 George Floyd! George Floyd! George Floyd! George Floyd! George Floyd!
Our social media, so I think pretty much most of them know that they're in violation.
George Floyd! Justice! Justice!
So Los Angeles right now is under a county-wide lockdown. Los Angeles population is 10 million, about 14 million with the surrounding areas. Mandatory curfew. As you can see, military vehicles on your right, along with the LAPD. These are LAPD military vehicles. So after Iran and Iraq, the LAPD picked up a bunch of full-on wartime vehicles. So it's literally the police at war with the American public. The American public's on the left, demanding their rights, demanding that these same people that are at war with the public stop killing the public. Just yesterday, a journalist here in Los Angeles taking pictures and covering this was killed by the police. They shot a gas canister right into his head and he died. So this is lethal force. It's out of control, and people feel that they have a right to be on their own streets. As you see, they're on both sides of the intersection here on your left. Brian Hamilton shooting this video here. And that's because half of it is Los Angeles on the south side, the view from that we're standing at, looking across. That's the West Hollywood side. Two separate cities altogether, spread by an intersection. And this is a famous Sunset Strip. That's where you would know it. That's the Laugh Factory you'll see right there across the street. Let's go back and hear this audio and see if we can get our live feed of the mobilization back.
Oh, shit. Sorry about that. Sorry. Fuck these racist ass police.
Look at that. The alarm is going off in the store. You can see the shattered glass on the floor. These doors were just shattered. The windows, even this security door, this metal door was just somehow taken down.
You'll note that the mainstream media is referring to they who did this, they who did that. They're the same ones that have been standing behind the police force the entire time when covering this, as opposed to interviewing the protesters, being with the protesters, wondering what a social and political movement is all about. Instead, they're covering what they, as if they in the corporate media are not the same as the actual public, living in their sort of luxurious perch, looking at us all like a bunch of anthropological specimens under glass. Interesting. Listen just to the tone and the analysis that they give.
Some of that video from earlier right now, but those people that came in here and looted and vandalized, they did leave behind some pretty devastating damage. So I want to show you this Kickin' Crab, a small Cajun seafood restaurant. You can see a sign on the door that says, due to city curfew, we close at 4 p.m. They closed, they did the right thing, and take a look. Shattered glass, their door is completely broken, and you can take a look inside at just all of the glass. What does this sign say? We will refuse service if you do not wear a mask. When this was hung up, the biggest concern was the COVID-19 pandemic that we are experiencing still now. But just within the last few days, these are the scenes we've been seeing, and we just heard something. It sounded like a firecracker.
So it's also interesting to note, because we're in America, you have to constantly disclaim, I'm not saying Nobody is advocating violence. Nobody is advocating looting, not even remotely. That is the last thing on 99.9999% of everybody who's out there mind. That is not their intent. It is not they who is doing it. But those who are doing it are getting staples. It's not like the old days where you go in and steal TV sets in historical footage. They're stealing food and shoes and clothes. That shows you where 30 million people have been laid off stand that have not been given any kind of help. They haven't been given masks or rubber gloves or any of the necessities even to protect themselves from a plague. And the President of the United States, the chief law enforcement officer of the entire nation, by the way, that's the President, says we're at war with a virus, but has not trained anyone for war, nor has given them ammunition or way to defend themselves. So this is a response to that in many ways. Brian Hamilton in West Hollywood. You're seeing the footage right on the intersection of Crescent Heights and Sunset Boulevard, famous Sunset Boulevard, which is the area of the Sunset Strip. It's where people hang out and have a good time and party. So it's very unusual ever to see this kind of thing going on. I'm going to show you the National Guard that rolled in just some 20 minutes ago. Find that bit of video here, find out what I named it. Multitasking here, trying to roll in stuff real time for you. Hard to find it, so I have to sort that out in just a minute. Meanwhile, let's go back to listen to the left screen. This is the Los Angeles side. The other side of the street is the West Hollywood side. You can see the public driving. They're completely on the side of their fellow American citizens. This is not to say that the police aren't American citizens, but just here in LA yesterday, they killed a journalist by firing a gas canister into his head. Dead men apparently tell no tales.
I'm going to have to wash my mouth out with soap.
Huh?
Just kidding. I don't usually swear this much. George Floyd! Black lives, they matter here. Black lives, they matter here.
In effect, not only in Riverside County, neighboring cities, also in LA County and neighboring cities, until 6 a.m.
We're going to watch the developments as they unfold in Riverside and throughout Southern California. We're going to take a short break and be back with more breaking news coverage after this.
Going to bring up the National Guard in just a moment. Just grabbing that video for you.
peace, fuck these racist ass police. No justice, no peace, fuck these racist ass police. No justice, no peace. Fuck these racist ass police.
We continue our breaking news coverage here, and now we go back to Van Nuys and Jennifer McGraw with the scene there tonight. Jennifer?
We're back out here at the Walgreens where they're basically rounding up all those curfew violators, and they have zip tied them, taken their information, and over there you see the bus. They'll eventually get loaded up on the bus and taken to jail. There's something also, they have to separate the adults from the juveniles, so that's why they probably have two. If we can spin around this way, this has been our day since we got out here. Police cars left and right. And as we're trying to bring the viewers a little bit about what's going on and try to get that scene to scene, it's hard because we'll go one way with the police and then we'll see another row go the other way. So there's just a whole lot of activity. Here at the Walgreens, though, earlier it was broken into in the front. People ran inside. They grabbed bottles of booze. They tried to grab pharmaceutical drugs, and then they ran out of the store. The problem with all of this, aside from the damage, is that the first responders immediately come to the area and make sure nobody's in the building. And I heard a firefighter actually went inside, and he was cut, like when he went inside, he was cut by the glass, and it was sort of like he was shredded as he went inside. So he was treated. I hope he's doing okay. But those are some of the consequences that we have when people are being destructive and chaos is going on. And unfortunately, it's the first responders who are also being...
Have you noticed that not once is she positing any thought about why people are even there, why they might be looting? Again, not supporting that, but why would they go to these lengths, such extraordinary lengths, to go loot and risk arrest and the rest of it? What kind of life is so bad that you're willing to do that? Nothing. Completely missing the big, hairy, fat mastodon in the middle of the room, which is exactly that.
In just a few minutes.
All right, as we look live on screen left in Van Nuys, and what you're seeing on the right of your screen, well, we saw it for a moment there, the looting of that drugstore there. That happened sometime between 4 and 5 o'clock this afternoon. And again, just a few moments ago, we saw the attempted looting of this pavilions that was also in Van Nuys. We understand a number of arrests are underway here as well. This was a foot chase. We saw police going after one suspect and bringing him into custody. But they're moving very quickly on anyone who thinks they're going to get away with committing crime in the streets of Los Angeles tonight.
We want to go up to Larry Welk. He's in Sky 5 overhead. No? Okay. Well, we are there. That is the chase where you said where you see some arrests being made. And Micah, it has really been one of those days where they mean business tonight. There were 700 arrests that were made yesterday. You can only imagine just how many arrests will be made tonight, but they started early here.
They did, and they're moving quickly in Riverside as well. As we look live on the right of your screen, there's a very heavy law enforcement presence in downtown Riverside. We saw, after talking with Riverside PD a few moments ago, a number of protesters, many hundreds of them that were in the area,
helmeted guys,
and did leave, did adhere to the dispersal order, did adhere to the curfew. As we've been reporting, they gave a little bit of time from the moment that curfew went into effect to allow people to get to their cars and leave. And at this point, here we are going on 2 hours now after the curfew was called in Riverside County at 6 p.m. You see dozens of people still milling about on the street with apparently no intention of adhering to that curfew, and they'll find themselves handcuffed if they don't adhere. And there you see the law enforcement ready to do just that as they move along the surface streets here in downtown Riverside, dealing with a crowd.
We're going to continue to watch what's going on here in Riverside, in Van Nuys, Westwood, downtown Los Angeles, and Hollywood. We are also on our way to a small brush fire on the 405. We will continue our team coverage on this breaking news after the break.
With the Posse Comitatus Act and other seemingly antiquated laws now, that the government and the military would be against the people, the citizens themselves. We're taking a look at the National Guard that has shown up in West Hollywood, California. To the left is this intersection next to there. You can see the National Guard is there in full shoot-to-kill gear.
So strange. I don't see any media out here. No mass media. This is all personally reported. Well, that's why I'm doing this. Black lives, they matter here. 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 George Floyd. George Floyd. George Floyd. Breonna Taylor. Breonna Taylor. Breonna Taylor. Black lives, they matter here. So this is probably one of the largest protests to happen in LA, and there's not one media truck here. There's no major networks out here. It's all people recording it on their phones. It's like they want to obfuscate the fact that there are peaceful protesters and only show the looting. That's not happening here.
Our live coverage continues here on KTLA. Lauren Lister is live on the streets of Hollywood as the LAPD is dealing with a large crowd tonight, well after curfew. Lauren.
George Floyd! George Floyd! George Floyd! George Floyd! George Floyd! George Floyd!
Military vehicles right in West Hollywood. Helmeted guys with machine guns. Who would have ever thought, with the Posse Comitatus Act and other seemingly antiquated laws now, that the government and the military would be against the people, the citizens themselves. Incredible.
that.
Military vehicles right in West Hollywood. Helmeted guys with machine guns. Who would have ever thought the Posse Comitatus Act and other seemingly antiquated laws now that the government and the military would be against.
Everybody seemed to know him. I
citizens
thought he was a
themselves.
celebrity.
Just incredible.
I'm sorry. Hey, it's Brian. I'm back again. It's interesting. The Mason-Dixon line between the city of West Hollywood and the city of Los Angeles is right behind me. The city of West Hollywood, in their eminent wisdom, if I said that right, in their wisdom, made the curfew 4 p.m. So over there, the curfew is 4 p.m. And in the city of Los Angeles, they just changed the curfew seconds ago. I got an alert on my phone. From 6 p.m. to 5 p.m. So let's see how that plays out with all of these people in this crowd. They're probably going to come in and tell everyone to disperse, and that would be a provocation. We'll see what happens. But I have an easy escape route down the hill in case anybody's worried.
right in West Hollywood.
Justice!
Helmeted guns and machine guns.
Justice!
Who would have ever thought?
Black lives, they matter. Black lives, they matter here.
Against the people, the citizens themselves.
Black lives, they matter here. Black lives. Now. Justice. Now. Justice. Now. George Floyd. George Floyd. George Floyd. George Floyd. Breonna Taylor. Breonna Taylor. Breonna Taylor. Breonna Taylor. Breonna Taylor. No peace. Fuck these racist ass police. No justice, no peace. Fuck these racist ass police. No justice, no peace. Fuck these racist ass police. No peace. Fuck these racist ass police. No justice, no peace. Fuck these racist ass police.
Fuck these racist ass police.
No peace. Fuck these racist ass police. No peace. Fuck these racist ass police. No peace. Fuck these racist ass police. No peace. Fuck these racist ass police.
Black lives, they matter here.
Black lives, they matter here. Black lives, they matter here. Black lives, they matter here. Black lives, they matter here.
Black lives, they matter here.
Black lives, they matter here.
What do we want?
Justice.
What do we want?
Now.
What do we want?
Justice. Now.
What do we want?
Justice. Now. Justice. Now. George Floyd. George Floyd. George Floyd. George Floyd. Breonna Taylor. Breonna Taylor. Breonna Taylor. Breonna Taylor. Breonna Taylor. Justice. Now. Justice. Now. Justice. Now. Black lives, they matter here.
Black lives, they matter here.
Black lives, they matter here. Black lives, they matter here. Black lives, they matter here. Black lives, they matter here. Now. Justice. Now. Justice. Now. Justice. Now. Justice. Now. Justice. Now. Justice. Now. George Floyd.
Military
George
vehicle
Floyd.
right in West
George
Hollywood.
Floyd. George Floyd.
Helmeted guns and
Breonna
machine guns.
Taylor. Black lives, they matter here. Black lives, they matter here.
And other seemingly
Black lives, they matter here.
that the government
Black
and
lives, they
military
matter
against
here.
the people, the citizens themselves.
Black lives, they matter here.
Just incredible.
Black lives, they matter here.
Fist in the air. What's his name?
George Floyd.
What's his name?
George Floyd. George Floyd. Breonna Taylor. Breonna Taylor. Breonna Taylor. Justice. Now. Justice. Now. Justice. Now.
Isn't that
great? Justice. Now. Black lives, they matter here. Black lives, they matter here. Black lives, they matter here. lives, they matter here. George Floyd. 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 Justice. Now. Justice. Now. Justice. Now. Justice. Now. Black lives, they matter here. 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 George Floyd. George Floyd. No justice, no peace. These racist ass police. No justice, no peace. Fuck these racist ass police. No justice, no peace. Fuck these racist ass police. No justice, no peace. Fuck these racist ass police. No justice, no peace. Fuck these racist ass police. Fuck these racist ass police. Fuck these racist ass police. Black lives, they matter here.
Military vehicles right in West Hollywood. Helmeted guys with machine guns. Who would have ever thought the Posse Comitatus Act and other seemingly antiquated laws now. The government and the military would be against the people, the citizens themselves. It's incredible.
Fuck these racist ass police. Fuck these racist ass police.
No justice, no peace. Fuck these racist ass police. No justice, no peace. Fuck these racist ass police. No justice, no peace. Fuck these racist ass police. What do we want?
Justice.
When do we want it?
Now.
What do we want?
Justice.
What do we want it?
Now.
What do we want?
Justice.
When do we want it?
Now.
Did you guys get that? LAPD moved up the curfew to 5.
I saw it on the way over here.
It's a sneaky little thing. That's a provocation for you on the side. justice. Now.
Justice.
Now. Pardon me. Thank you.
Military vehicles right in West Hollywood. Helmeted guys with machine guns.
We're live from the Laugh Factory in Los Angeles.
It originated somewhere in Los Angeles proper, very near downtown. And again, a burglary suspect
the government and the
in the midst
military
of
would be
all of
against
this.
the people, the citizens themselves.
In terms of the circumstances of that burglary, were not clear at this point. But LAPD in the air, as you can see, and also on the ground, pursuing this suspect in this SUV. At this point, we don't know how many people might be in the car other than the driver, or if perhaps the driver is the lone occupant. We do not know, but this is, again, racing through Koreatown. It made its way through Silver Lake, along the 101 westbound for a time, exiting at Echo Park and on Temple for a time, and again, weaving through the streets of Koreatown now. Again, this suspect wanted for burglary, blowing through an intersection there, as you saw, with wanton disregard for the traffic laws. You've got a violation of curfew, and the list of charges growing by the minute for this suspect.
Yeah, it seems like the violation of curfew is the least of his problems right now. At this point, this is, again, as you mentioned, a burglary suspect accused of assaulting an officer. But yeah, the list will be long for sure when he is finally in custody. Again, LAPD in pursuit of this white SUV that you see in Koreatown. We also have the night sun on him, and the resources of the LAPD, or law enforcement in general, is stretched thin. As we know, we've been watching the breaking news all around town and seeing the police presence, and now we have a pursuit on top of it. There are the black and whites making that U-turn on this overpass as he starts making his way through Koreatown. Again, this suspect wanted for burglary and accused of assaulting an officer. This looks like it is on Sunset Boulevard, and it is making its way west there into the Arby's restaurant, well, right past the Arby's, and now going south and through surface streets, as Mike also mentioned, blowing through some intersections. Now this is in Hollywood, and we are now
it's heading southbound towards Santa Monica Boulevard. Again, LAPD right behind, right on the bumper of this burglary suspect. Larry Welk is tracking this as well from Sky 5. Larry, what do you see?
Well, we know that the suspect originally it was thought that he was wanted for reckless driving, and then apparently there was some sort of assault with a deadly weapon. We believe that weapon might have been the car against a police officer. Suspect now moving westbound on Santa Monica, very close to where we just left the demonstrations that were going on earlier. And again, that big SUV driving now southbound through a neighborhood. It's El Centro. And at this point, officers, it's very unusual in the condition that we are in right now, where most of the officers are on duty but ready to respond to tactical situations, would pursue. But because this suspect, now on El Centro southbound, was wanted for assault with a deadly weapon against a police officer, they want to make sure somebody that dangerous is not on the streets, especially when we are working in the conditions that we're working in, a curfew, and people making, we got cross traffic coming up. We're going to go southbound toward Melrose. But as I was saying, because it's assault with a deadly weapon against a police officer, that is what makes it more important. So the LAPD's got an air unit overhead. They've got a couple of units in behind, but nothing like we normally see here on an ordinary news day here in Los Angeles. Usually you have 5 or 6 police cars. In this case, because resources are spread so thin, they've only got 2 police cars here.
Have you noticed that the problem is that somebody assaulted a police officer with a deadly weapon, didn't kill him, but all these resources are now used to go after somebody who had a weapon against the police, did not hurt them, but simply had a weapon. All these resources, tens of thousands of dollars. But a policeman puts his knee on the neck of somebody and kills them, and no resources are used. So it's a very interesting moment here in U.S. history. What will the public continue to do?
Again, some people might be wondering, why don't they just stop it? Why don't they put a pit maneuver or put a spike strip out? It's just simply too dangerous at these speeds with a vehicle that is this heavy. And now, as we make our way up toward the 101 freeway, this suspect showing no signs of trying to slow down, continuing to try and evade officers, which is going to be very difficult because there are police officers everywhere in Los Angeles right now. It is the biggest show of force I have ever seen in almost 28 years, 30 years of doing news. And now the suspect getting on the southbound 101 freeway. So the suspect now has decided to join the southbound 101 freeway, which, by the way, is completely empty. So it'll be full speeds for this suspect right now as he makes his way down the 101 freeway. And again, assault with a deadly weapon, reckless driving, but out past curfew as well. And why somebody wouldn't just pull over, we don't know. Neither do the police officers. That's what makes it especially dangerous.
It's difficult to rationalize the intentions and the mindset of a suspect fleeing from police like this. You know, you can think about it and run circles around it, but the reality is there's a lot of danger to a lot of people. But fortunately, in this scenario, with the curfew in effect and very few people on the roads, the motoring public is largely going to be able to steer clear of this in a figurative sense. There are some cars on the road, but not obviously what we would normally see during the 8 o'clock hour on a Monday in normal times. As the LAPD continues in pursuit of this suspect, we have to believe that the CHP will get involved at some point if it remains on the freeway for an extended period as they move now southbound toward downtown Los Angeles.
This SUV is speeding for sure, and we can't imagine just how fast he's going just yet. We're going to try and get that for you in just a moment, but as we know, the resources are stretched pretty thin right now for law enforcement, as they have been concentrated in corralling demonstrators that are out past curfew. So at the moment, what we have are just 2 black and whites, and there you go. He's going upwards of 90 miles per hour here on the 101 South, making his way from Hollywood down into Silver Lake. When we caught this pursuit, it was already in Silver Lake, making its way through Hollywood, going west, and it's now doing a big circle around now on the freeway. But as we've been talking about with the curfew in effect, now as he's making his exit over here,
TV5.
we want
like
to go
the 110, probably the 110 south.
Let's go over to Larry Welk right now, and we've got a night sun on him. The freeways are wide open.
They're wide open, and I have to tell you, we had the speedometer up for a second there, but this guy was doing upwards of 105 miles per hour, which is really moving out for a vehicle of this size. And he is now moving southbound on that 110 freeway through the downtown LA slot. This guy just showing no regard for any other drivers on the freeway right now. It's an extremely dangerous situation as we make our way through downtown Los Angeles. We were moving down the 101 freeway doing 105 miles an hour, and now they've got a low helicopter from the LAPD. They've got a high helicopter from the LAPD, and this guy, it's tough to keep up with him flying a helicopter. To be honest with you, I am full power right now, and I'm trying to catch up to this pursuit that is now going southbound so fast that it looks like it's going to perhaps continue south on the 110 freeway. So that will necessitate, I'll have to call the control tower at LAX and I'll have to take a quick break and get back to you in just a second.
All right, that gives you an indication of the speed. Full throttle for Sky 5. This is north of 100 miles an hour southbound on the 110 freeway. This individual wanted for burglary and assault with a deadly weapon on a peace officer. That could well mean that he tried to use that vehicle to, ram a police car or run over an officer.
Video has frozen for some reason or another. Hopefully it'll come back in just a moment. Notice the use of language. Language is critical in helping people understand what's going on. When this corporate media guy, newscaster, is referring to peace officers, not even police officers, not even officers, but peace officers, it establishes very clearly which side the media is on. And I'll just point out that when I was covering this earlier tonight, not this particular OJ meets World War Z, as Beaner Man brilliantly put it, but all of the media were behind the police, telling the story of the police, and not one questioned why would anybody have shown up in such vast numbers. Why would they possibly be upset? What was going on? And it really was from the point of view of the police. And I was one of two guys out there asking the public, why are you here? What does it mean? What's going on? And it's extraordinary. So now the police, or the news media in LA, have become the handmaiden of the LAPD, which is the handmaiden of city council and the mayor, versus the 10 million people who live in the city who want some kind of official statement saying that the cops will not kill them, people of color particularly. And just yesterday, a journalist was covering this and was killed by the LAPD. They fired a gas canister into his temple and killed him. So lots is going on, not yet reported, but we're trying to get this to you. Let's go back to OJ here, see if we can get this feed up and running again. It's going to go black for just a second while I see what we can do about this, okay? So stand by.
Under this very difficult situation. But suspect now moving westbound and now turning southbound. Looks like that might be Figueroa. Indeed it is. Indeed it is Figueroa. And the suspect now driving extremely fast on these surface streets right now. And you can see there's quite a bit of traffic out here, considering that there has been a curfew in effect for many, many hours now. So we see that officers are now doing their best to keep up. About 6 police cars right now that are following this car through side streets. And it looks like it's it's on Florence now. So it exited the freeway at Florence and is now continuing. And it looks like eastbound Florence and passing 8th Street, but oh my goodness, I'm not even sure if that was a green light. This next intersection is going to be a green light and another firework right in front of Sky 5. Right through this intersection. Look how quickly that car is moving.
Oh my.
So suspects right now, we don't know how many people are in that car, but this is an extreme danger to the public. And again, that air unit in tracking mode, and there are LAPD black and whites that have actually backed out of the pursuit because it was simply too dangerous. It was getting to be too fast. But even though there is nobody following this car right now, he is 100 miles an hour on surface streets, and with his foot all the way to the floor on the pedal, he's got a green light, fresh green light coming up into this intersection right now. And this is just extremely dangerous. And we don't know if this is going to be a red light. We'll see what happens. Red light coming up to this intersection, and the suspect slows down. Southbound turn looks like it's going to be west of Imperial. What is it? Compton Avenue. Compton Avenue, suspect now going southbound Compton. Nobody behind him. That's the interesting thing. Officers are at least a mile behind this suspect, and the suspect continues to go extremely fast as we make our way southbound on Compton Avenue. Another intersection. He's got making a right turn now. Oh, stopped in the intersection, getting out, and now several people get out of that car, and they're running now. And we got the driver here. Hang on one second. Now we got LAPD now moving extremely fast, trying to get into the area where the suspect is running. He's running southbound, and he's coming right toward us, and he goes into a home. Suspect stops the car, runs about a half a block, and then down into the front yard of a home, and this will now become a perimeter. But I have to tell you, what a relief.
You know, if the LAPD, if any PD, spent a tenth of the resources they just spent on a single burglary suspect, on the murder in Minnesota, if these kinds of resources had been marshaled to cure that situation and bring the public, vindicate the public, remember, it is the interest of the public. They work for us, not the other way around. Half of this stuff wouldn't be happening. But here it is.
That jumped out of that car and split off in different directions, but there's no way out for this suspect at this point.
Right. As Larry Welk mentioned, who's in Sky 5, they will create a perimeter. That's what you're seeing right now. There's one suspect who looks like he is complying and now laying on the ground as officers are instructing him to lay on his stomach, and now they are putting him in custody. That is one suspect that we know about. We know that there is another suspect that also foot-bailed, and there could be more people that were in that SUV that was going some 100 miles per hour on surface streets through South LA after it exited on Florence from the 110 South. So remember, we had 2 helicopters from law enforcement over this, and now we've got several black and whites in surrounding the area where they ditched the SUV and foot-bailed.
Wow, that was not going to end well with them driving as fast as they were on a surface street in a vehicle like that in particular. You're just not able to stop, and you're not able to avoid colliding with something that might come out in front of you at 100 miles an hour on surface streets. Boy, the police were on them. They backed off for a while because they were going so fast, but it didn't do anything to lessen the speed of the suspect. They continued on at 100 miles an hour and finally just decided to jump out. Now, Larry, we know there's one person for sure in custody. We know there were at least 2 people that jumped out. Any indication they might have a second person?
Yeah, 2 guys ran into this apartment, so we don't know if that's a suspect right there, but they seem to have contained the 2 other people. So the driver appears to be in custody. 2 others ran into this apartment building right here, and we believe that they're either contained or in custody right now. But I think the great news here is that there is no more danger to the public on these surface streets at those high speeds, and now there is a containment set up. And I'll tell you what, these people picked the wrong night to try and get away from the police, because as we know, the police are fully staffed right now across the city of Los Angeles, so there was no problem getting any kind of backup in here, and now they believe that the suspect might be, the driver's in custody, and 2 other people that were in that vehicle believed to be contained in this house or apartment here.
Larry Welk in Sky 5 over South LA, where we have one person in custody for sure on this pursuit that went from Silver Lake to Hollywood and then back onto the 101 into the 110 South and ending here in South LA. A perimeter set up, and we're looking for 2 more suspects to be in custody and to be taken into custody. Again, wanted for burglary, assault with a deadly weapon, and we can add breaking curfew too.
Yeah, they are surrounded at this point by LAPD. We're going to step aside for a moment and come back with more coverage. Stay with us here on KTLA.
President Trump is threatening to deploy the U.S. military if a governor in any state doesn't stop incidents of looting.
Police fired tear gas at protesters near the White House as the president spoke earlier. KTLA's John Fenolio is watching the White House for us tonight. John.
Well, Sharon, Micah, that's right. A volatile night at the White House. We've seen police fire tear gas at what appeared to be peaceful protesters shortly before Washington, D.C.'s 7 p.m. curfew. Now, all this happening as the president spoke in the Rose Garden and called on the National Guard to, quote, dominate demonstrators nationwide. In front of the White House, demonstrators facing off with police and National Guard members. Then, chaos. Moments later, President Trump addressing the nation.
I am your president of law and order and an ally of all peaceful protesters. I am mobilizing all available federal resources, civilian and military, to stop the rioting and looting, to end the destruction and arson, and to protect the rights of law-abiding Americans, including your Second Amendment rights. Today, I have strongly recommended to every governor to deploy the National Guard in sufficient numbers that we dominate the streets.
And after the president spoke at the White House, police cleared the streets using flashbangs and tear gas. The president then walked across Lafayette Square to St. John's Church, where a fire had been set Sunday night. The president held up a Bible. He then posed for photos with Attorney General Bill Barr and others before returning to the White House. Meantime, Joe Biden is tweeting tonight, quote, he's using the American military against the American people. He tear-gassed peaceful protesters and fired rubber bullets for a photo. For our children, for our very soul of our country, we must defeat him. But I mean it when I say this, we can only do it together. And late today, we can tell you that the Hennepin County Medical Examiner in Minnesota said that George Floyd's death was in fact a homicide. The report says that Floyd died due to cardiopulmonary arrest while he was being restrained by law enforcement. We'll have more on this later tonight. John Fenolio, KTLA 5 News.
John, thank you. Amid days of protest sparked by George Floyd's death, the Floyd family has called for an independent autopsy to determine how he died.
The results contradicting the county medical examiner's office. Kimberly Chang has the developments, and she joins us live from the newsroom. Kimberly?
Sure, Micah. Yeah, the family called for an independent autopsy, and those results came in as the county medical examiner's final report was released. Meanwhile, Floyd's brother went to the site where he was killed and told the public, of course, he and his family are upset, but they are calling for peace.
If I'm not over here wilding out, if I'm not over here blowing up stuff, if I'm not over here messing up my community, come on. Then what are y'all doing? What are y'all doing? Y'all doing nothing.
George Floyd's younger brother visited his memorial in Minneapolis Monday afternoon. He said, of course, their family is upset, but they're calling for a stop to the destruction in the community.
But we're not going to take it. We're not going to be repetitious. In every case of police brutality, the same thing has been happening. Y'all protest. Y'all destroy stuff, and they don't move. You know why they don't move? Because it's not their stuff, it's our stuff. So they want us to destroy our stuff. Come on, Don. They're not going to move. So let's do this another way.
Meanwhile, the Floyd family attorney and doctors who performed an independent autopsy announced their results.
Yes, our findings do differ. Some of the information I read from that complaint state that there was no evidence of traumatic asphyxia. This is the point in which we do disagree, that there is evidence in this case of mechanical or traumatic asphyxia.
According to the medical examiner, Floyd died from cardiopulmonary arrest, meaning his heart failed while being restrained by officers. Floyd family attorney Ben Crump.
For George Floyd, the ambulance was his hearse. Beyond question, he would be alive today if not for the pressure applied to his neck.
Now, the officer seen kneeling on Floyd's neck was charged with third-degree murder and second-degree manslaughter. The other officers have not been charged. The family is calling for their arrests. All of them were fired. Reporting live in the newsroom, Kimberly Chang, KTLA 5 News.
Thank you, Kimberly. Back to Sky 5 Live, and yet another police pursuit. LAPD in pursuit on the freeway of this white pickup truck. Larry Welk in Sky 5.
I can't believe it. Another pursuit here in the city of Los Angeles while we're all on quarantine and lockdown with a curfew. But nonetheless, there is a pursuit right now that Culver City originated. So the actual pursuing officers are Culver City PD. And hold on one second. Okay. And we're going to stay on the north side for now. And the suspect out of Culver City has now, Culver City requested the help of the California Highway Patrol because the Culver City PD, obviously very familiar with Culver City, but now we're in South Pasadena and there's an accident on the 110 freeway and the suspect may have to stop as a result of the accident. Look at this. There's a fire truck in the middle of the freeway. There's a traffic accident and the suspect had to slow down but did not stop. Culver City still in behind this pickup truck. And again, we're still trying to figure out what he was wanted for. Originally came out, we don't know what the original want was, but somebody said there's a pursuit coming out of Culver City. And I said, it can't be. It must be the pursuit that we just did. And they said, no, sir, it's a different pursuit. So we flew up to the 110, and sure enough, here it is. And the suspect now, I believe he's blacked out. No lights on in that car whatsoever. And for those people that are familiar with the 110 freeway, you know, not only is it one of the oldest freeways in LA and not really built for high speeds, but it ends at Fair Oaks in the city of Pasadena. And so I'm wondering if Pasadena has been notified. I'm looking up ahead into the city of Pasadena, and it's almost like a ghost town. There are hardly any vehicles on the road right now, as it should be due to the curfew. But now moving up the 110 freeway, looks like we're going to be crossing over Arroyo, and then you'll see a curve in the road here, and that will be Fair Oaks as it makes its way northbound on the 110 that will eventually end at the city of Pasadena. So what a night with two different pursuits, so much law enforcement on the road. They don't even want to take the assets away from some of the areas where there might be protests or where there might be people that are violating the curfew. So it's very unusual that they would be doing this right now. Nonetheless, they must have decided that this was somebody that they wanted to get off the streets of Los Angeles, Culver City, now Pasadena. And there you see, looks like some sort of a GMC pickup truck moving at an incredibly high rate of speed right now, and now getting into the city of Pasadena.
All right. Again, this is a second pursuit now that we are that we are over in Sky 5 of a white pickup truck. The other one was a white SUV. We are still trying to figure out what the want is for, but obviously it's enough for this driver in this pickup truck to want to run, and he's now made it into the surface streets of Pasadena. Again, that 110, it ends at Fair Oaks, and so now he's making his way through surface streets in Pasadena, and he got a green light there at that intersection. And because there is a curfew in effect, he's on Arroyo, sorry.
Red light.
Here we go. We'll go up to Larry Welk right now as he's following this, but he's...
Oh, I'm sorry about that. I'm talking to Colton Von Pertz in the back seat, doing an excellent job tracking these incredibly high-speed pursuits, but I was wrong. It wasn't Fair Oaks. Red light right through. Doesn't even slow down. Just blazed right through that red light. 70 miles an hour on surface streets, got a fresh green light, and now completely blacked out. Nobody else on the roadway right now going up Arroyo. Now, I can tell you Arroyo dead ends into a bus station, but it looks like instead Arroyo, he's going to get on Green Street. It's a one-way street. He went the right way, thank goodness, and now making his way into Pasadena on Green Street. Green Street will have a little jog to it when it gets up to Lake, but for the most part, it looks like Culver City's getting into position to try and do a pit So that would be extraordinary if they were trying to pit at these speeds with a pickup truck. But the suspect now moving along Green Street and going very, very quickly. Green Street is completely covered by trees as well in some places, so it might be difficult to get a shot of the suspect. We're going to move Sky 5 into a position where you can see through those trees. But do you notice that there's nobody else on the road? It's a burglary suspect, so thank you to our assignment desk. They just confirmed what the want was. So that's 2 pursuits. Whoa, cross traffic. One of the only other cars on the road tonight. But the suspect wanted for burglary, now on green. And there is a canopy of trees, hard on the brakes at a green light, so we expect a turn coming up. Left turn on Catalina. Now northbound Catalina slowing down a lot, turning into a parking lot. Looks like it's going to come to an end right here. Suspect stops, gets out. That's a good job, Colton. Arms in the air. Unbelievable. Why drive all the way up here just to do that? But the suspect made a pretty smart choice there. And the suspect got, okay, now we believe the passengers are on the left side of your screen. Passenger now making a left turn, and passenger in custody now, arms out, flat on the ground. So just speculating here, the car stopped, the driver got out, arms in the air, so perhaps the driver wasn't even involved with any kind of crime. So the suspect clearly was in the passenger side and got out and was running away from officers, now in the custody of the Culver City PD.
They're chasing somebody else.
Very empty Pasadena.
They're chasing somebody else. I can't quite make out what that is, but clearly there's urgency there when we believe that the suspect was in custody. And whether somebody else jumped out and ran, we don't know at this point. But their pursuit does not appear to be over of everyone involved here. Again, Larry, you indicated a burglary suspect. There you see the driver down on the ground next to the driver's side door. Suspect number 2 in custody in that parking lot that we just saw. But then the officers running back in the other direction.
Number 3.
Yeah, there we have number 3 passenger coming out there with the hands up and listening and abiding by what the officers are telling that person to do. It looks like it might be a woman, and I think that the person in the parking lot that was put into custody, that was running away, that is in custody now, also a woman. But here we have an incredible police response as she's getting cuffed, or he, an incredible police response as all of LA County is under a tactical alert. Everybody's on duty tonight.
A wild night across Southern California.
You know, of course, a burglary suspect, we're all supposed to be under curfew, and if they catch somebody trying to get into somebody else's home, or any kind of burglary at all, there's so much law enforcement right now that it's just a bad move all around, because there is law enforcement everywhere. In fact, there are helicopters right now. There's National Guard, there's local police departments, CHP, LAPD, Pasadena. It's just incredible how much there's a blanket of law enforcement right now covering Southern California. And now you can see the suspect being taken into custody. That was the driver right there. And they are going to clear the vehicle. And that's it for this one. Another pursuit tonight ends without anybody getting injured and no traffic accidents. Thank goodness for the light traffic here as a result of this curfew.
Boy, a wild night across Southern California in ways we have not seen. Multifaceted response tactics for officers dealing with crowds, dealing with protesters, dealing with curfew breakers, and dealing with suspects who are running from the law after assault with a deadly weapon, burglary, you name it. And the list of incidents grows longer as the night grows longer.
Hundreds of people, well, dozens and dozens of people arrested already just for violating curfew. And within the last hour, just two pursuits within the last hour that we were able to follow, both burglary suspects and one, as you mentioned, assault with a deadly weapon. So we have all 3 of the suspects here that were evading police in custody. An incredible police response. It was Culver City, the Culver City PD that was in pursuit of these burglary suspects all the way into Pasadena. And here we go. This is at least the end of the pursuit and suspects in custody.
We will exhale and take a short break and be back with more breaking news coverage after this.
the names that spark movement. In 2012, 17-year-old Trayvon Martin walks into a 7-Eleven in Sanford, Florida. He grabs a bag of Skittles and a can of Arizona iced tea, wearing a dark gray hoodie that would become a symbol to many. As Martin walks home, he encounters George Zimmerman, a neighborhood watch volunteer who has already called 911 to report Martin's movements, even though the teen had done nothing wrong.
Something's wrong with him. Yeah. He's coming to check me out. He's got something in his hand.
Minutes later, after a fight between the two, George Zimmerman shoots and kills Trayvon Martin.
No justice, no peace.
Zimmerman charged with murder, but a jury finds him not guilty.
Justice! Now! Justice! Now! Justice! Now!
His death and acquittal sparked national outrage, and a movement is born.
Trayvon was a people's person. He didn't deserve to die. And I pledge I will not let my son die in vain.
July 2014, 43-year-old Eric Gardner, a father of 6, is allegedly selling loose cigarettes illegally on Staten Island in New York. Officers surround him to make an arrest.
I'm minding my business. Please just leave me alone.
Officer Daniel Pantaleo is seen wrapping an arm around Gardner's neck before pulling him down to the ground. As Pantaleo forces Gardner's head into the sidewalk, Gardner is saying he dies shortly afterward. 5 years later, Pantaleo is fired after it is determined he used a chokehold banned by the NYPD. But long before that day, Gardner's last words become a national cry for help and social justice.
I can't breathe.
August 2014, 18-year-old Michael Brown is shot by a police officer. His death sparks days of protests and riots in the city of Ferguson, Missouri. While the city burns, two narratives emerge, one that Brown was unarmed and surrendering when he was shot. The other story from Officer Darren Wilson is that Brown was told to get out of the street, and during a confrontation, the teen tried taking his gun. The officer says he feared for his life when he shot and killed Brown. This time, the cry is the chant, "Hands up, don't shoot." As thousands pour into the streets to demand justice, the officer is not charged. In October 2014, Laquan Mcdonald, a black teenager, is killed by police in Chicago, shot 16 times by an officer who'd arrived at the scene seconds before. Though the officer claims self-defense since McDonald had a knife, an autopsy shows some of the shots entered McDonald's back while he was turned away. The incident sparks protests in Chicago when police dashcam video is released more than a year later. The officer, Jason Van Dyke, is found guilty of murder.
16 shots and a cover-up.
There was a guy and there was a pistol, I saw his face. He's like pointing it at everybody.
November 2014, 12-year-old Tamir Rice is playing with a toy gun at a park in Cleveland, Ohio, when officers are called. An officer shoots Rice seconds after arriving. A grand jury declines to indict the officer, the prosecutor saying the evidence did not indicate criminal misconduct by police. In April of 2015, in North Charleston, South Carolina, Walter Scott was pulled over for a broken brake light. An eyewitness captured the tragic outcome. Walter Scott was shot and killed by Officer Michael Slager, who was later convicted and sentenced to 20 years for murder.
All day, we will fight for Freddie Gray.
Later, in April of 2015, the city of Baltimore is rocked when Freddie Gray dies in police custody. The 25-year-old black man's arrest is caught on video. The Baltimore Police Department charges Gray for possessing a knife. After being transported in a police van, Gray falls into a coma and is taken to the hospital where he dies later of a spinal injury. None of the officers involved in Gray's arrest were convicted.
Freddie! I told him not to reach for it. I told him to get his hand out.
In July of 2016, Philando Castile gets pulled over. His girlfriend, Diamond Reynolds, and her 4-year-old daughter are in the car when she starts using her phone to live stream the interaction. Officer Geronimo Yanez opens fire, killing Philando.
Oh my God, please don't tell me he's dead.
The community rallies behind the Castile family, a beloved school cafeteria supervisor. The officer is charged but later found not guilty.
He wasn't no criminal. My baby was a good man, a good, hard-working man.
Then another tragedy in September 2018 unfolds in Dallas.
No justice, no peace. No justice, no peace.
26-year-old Botham John is shot and killed by Dallas police officer Amber Geiger while sitting in his own home.
So I'm calling on the Dallas officials. Please, come clean this for my son.
A jury later found Geiger guilty, and she was sentenced to 10 years for murder.